My coworker exploited church funds and then cheated on her husband.
I didn't read that one in the Bible.
So, as I have stated before, I have, for lack of a better word, lived a very interesting life. Oh, the stories I can and will tell. For now, though, I have to stick to the time I worked for a small Catholic newspaper. Which is a weird thing to do in your life, honestly.
Work for a small Catholic newspaper?
Yeah, that is a strange. Not a lot of people probably do that.
What are you talking about?
It is. What? It's like that's a very random job.
Very niche job.
By the way, this comes from user SayerSong. And if you want to submit your stories, you can do it on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, now, just a disclaimer. I myself am not Catholic. But luckily, at first, that did not stop me from being hired. This was both a blessing in that it paid the bills and I got to do what I loved as the sole graphic designer, and a curse in that I worked with some over-the-top people, including one that kept trying to convert me, a woman who was the epitome of being a Karen, years before being a Karen was even a thing, and a man who was a deacon, who literally spearheaded a campaign with a subordinate of his to gaslight me and then went on to harass another female worker as well, along with stealing commissions from yet another subordinate.
What?
This is a very ethically ran Catholic newspaper.
Oh my gosh. You guys have too much trust in these people. Just because you are a Catholic doesn't mean you aren't still human.
Hey.
That you aren't? Wait, what? Just say that one more time.
Just because you are Catholic doesn't mean you're not a human, because humans do crazy stuff all the time.
Oh, right.
Exempt you out.
Gotcha. I was thinking more in the context of like they were lizard people or something. And
No.
So this story involves the Karen, whom we will be calling Rachel. Rachel had been hired as a secretary and additional receptionist. We were a small office of 10 to 12 people max at any given time. When she came on, she was married and had a child. Like me, she was initially not Catholic, but later became Catholic.
Interesting.
I mention this because it is important in the grand scheme of things. See, the only reason she became Catholic, and she openly admitted this to me and others in the office that were all Catholic and had been for most of their lives, is because she found out that by her and her son being Catholic, she could get the church to foot the bill for her sending her son to a Catholic private school instead of a public one.
Oh my gosh.
How do we feel about that, Riley? Is that all in the Lord's design?
Dude.
I mean, free private school?
I don't know.
But it's private Catholic school.
Yeah, it's private.
What's wrong with private Catholic school, huh?
I've heard a lot of things are wrong with private Catholic school.
Yeah, there's a lot of wrong with
Jesus Christ, his man.
Did you go to private Catholic school, Riley?
No, I'm not Catholic.
I mean,
I'm Southern Baptist, brother.
I
went to public
I like the
school.
way you went, no, I'm not Catholic. Right after you were like, just if you're Catholic doesn't mean you're not human.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not. Sorry, you just asked a guy from the South that's pretty redneck if he was Catholic.
Are there not Catholic rednecks?
There probably are, but sorry, didn't mean to, offend anyone or whatever. I just thought you knew me better.
You don't really talk about
this is kind of crazy. Finding a loophole to steal from the church.
I mean, is it stealing?
Are we supposed to help the homeless?
It's in like the books. I guess, is it stealing if it's in the books? Where it's like,
if my husband and I are Catholic, our son will be going to Catholic school. No, that's not in.
But it's sort of like the same thing. It's like if me and my wife are married, we get a sweet tax credit. Like if you're getting
that's
married,
set up through the government, not through the Bible.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But it's if your reason for getting married is to take advantage of the tax credit, is that the same thing as what's going on here with becoming Catholic to get private school?
It's just weird. She's just exploiting.
It is funny.
Listen,
it is a weird thing.
As someone who went to private Catholic school for majority of his life, it's pretty messed up. Look at me. Look how I turned out.
I forget that was a Catholic school. That's crazy. Okay. Anyway, she did this because she wanted a private education for her son, but didn't want to pay for it. So she went through RCIA and had him go through RCIC and the whole 9 yards, and then told their church that they couldn't afford to send him to Catholic school and got the church to pay for it instead. Oh, so there's also some deception and lying going on here. Okay, never mind.
Gosh.
So it wasn't written in the books. It was like they're doing a solid but they're like actively taking advantage of them. So that's kind of lame.
I went to a church where they also had a school, and they did sponsor a lot of kids that couldn't afford it. I think the church that she's doing this to also has a setup like this, and you were denying schooling and education from other kids because you don't want to foot the bill.
Yeah, that is pretty.
That's
pretty
where
whack.
I'm like,
that's pretty whack, dude. Yeah, you're
going.
You're,
Keep making me mad.
Stealing affordable education now. So Catholic churches will help parishioners that want to but can't afford to send their kids to Catholic schools. They do so by paying for the school themselves out of the money that has been donated by other parishioners. So she got what she wanted. This frustrated a fellow coworker when she found out because she had been their sponsor and thought Rachel had been sincere in her wish to be Catholic. During this time, Rachel made it all but abundantly clear that she only plays Catholic when she needs to so as to get what she wants or needs, like that money for the school, but has no intention of actually living the life of a Catholic. Now, I had no intention of living life as a Catholic either, so I can understand that part. But then again, I never had any intention of becoming a Catholic, and they all knew this. Whenever Rachel's son needed to buy books or get money for extracurricular activities or lunch money or field trips, Rachel would immediately go to her church's parish office, looking her poorest and most vulnerable, and ask them to cover the amount. And they always did. Again, pissing off our fellow coworker who was a member of the same parish and had sponsored them.
That is wild. That is so wild. You work in the same office. This person's probably like giving an amount to the church every month. And then this person is taking that same amount, giving it to her son while laughing. Oh, dude, that's so...
I don't know how I feel about this.
This is so...
I don't know. Son's still getting private education. Just going to private school.
Okay. Son's getting private education. That's
Couldn't
a great
afford
thing.
it. Maybe really couldn't afford
Okay,
it.
even if she couldn't afford it, sure, that should be it. But she's abusing this. She's abusing this.
She is, but the Catholic Church has never exploited anybody before.
I think this is different because this is a community. This is a community.
That is true. Yeah, you're exploiting an individual community and not like the Vatican itself.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like the optics might be like, yeah, slam dunk on the Catholic Church, but really you're slam dunking on like your neighbors.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, so, scumbag, a little bit of scumbagginess. But it's still for like her kid's school, technically. So, I mean, how bad is that?
She is using a label to get what she wants. She's just
it is true. It's scummy. So, we all knew that Rachel's husband made a decent living, but apparently he either didn't know what she was really doing or didn't care. Due to what would happen a few years later, I am guessing that he didn't know and thought that his money was paying for the school and all the amenities, because while their son, who was a nice kid actually, and so was the husband the few times I met them, and he did love his family, the son was getting all this paid for by basically everyone else because of their, quote, poor status. Rachel was getting tanned and pampered. Yeah, Rachel had started spending almost all her lunches either going to a tanning salon, getting $200 to $300 manicures and pedicures, getting some tattoos on her ankles and wrists, getting her hair professionally done and kept up on a weekly basis, and getting spa treatments at least once every 2 weeks. Basically, all the money she spent on her own personal upkeep would have been more than enough to cover her son's schooling at the private Catholic school.
Oh my gosh, dude. Oh my gosh.
So I see exactly what's going on here. I see you. I see freaking you.
Yeah, no, it would be a completely different story if she actually needed this money.
So what made all of this even more ridiculous is that this woman went to tan so often that at one point she went past the normal orangish leathery look and started looking gray. Dang, I didn't know that. I kid you not. She had gray undertones to her tanning. Not fully gray, just enough of a gray undertone to make several of us question if she was starting to turn into a zombie or something. Dude, that's wild that you tan so much that you turn into an alien. Like you just start becoming like meep map boom map meep map.
Oh man.
I do think my coworker tried to tell the church, but without proof that Rachel was actively trying to scam them and with Rachel proving that she was poor due to bills, quote unquote, and them wanting to give her the benefit of the doubt, nothing ever came of it. It, of course, then came as no surprise, at least to me, that later she decided her husband no longer made enough money and was no longer worth her time, and decided to actively seek out an affair because she wanted something better, solidified, before fully giving up her cash cow, as it were.
Oh, wow.
But that is another story that I will tell later, and we have an update.
Oh, my God.
Woo, this woman is literally beneath trash. She's like the congealed goo that forms at the bottom of the trash can over time.
She's a wolf wearing sheep's clothing.
I don't even think I think a wolf is too much credit. A wolf is too self-sufficient. She's literally leeching off of both her husband and the Catholic Church.
A leech wearing sheep's clothing.
She's just a slimy leech at the bottom of a stinky pit from the King Kong movie from 2006.
That's kind of crazy. And as this is another thing that hopefully someone can do, but as brothers and sisters in Christ, they're supposed to call each other out on their BS. I'm surprised no one's really called her out on
They
this. They did?
But there's no they tried to go and call her out, but because there was like no real evidence that it was fake and that like they gave her the benefit of the doubt, like yeah.
I don't know. I would
so
be
nothing ever
out.
came of it, but I would continue to for sure.
Yeah.
So let's get into this update, okay? Update. So I have previously mentioned my coworker Rachel from when I was working at a small Catholic newspaper, and how she had basically conned the church into footing the bill for her son's education, something she and her husband could afford to pay out of their own pocket, while spending the money she had on herself. I mentioned that I did not and do not believe that he knew about this at the time, and here is the reason for that. Oh boy, I feel the need to once again reiterate the sheer entitlement of this woman. I mean, you could fill an entire mountain range with her entitlement and audacity. You see, as time went on and Rachel got more tanned, got her tattoos, which admittedly were nice ones, got her expensive mani-pedis and her almost Karen haircut, she also decided that her nice husband was just no longer worthy of her. She began complaining constantly about how he didn't make enough money, that she felt she was now too good for him, and how she had previously dated a local well-known business owner that she was sure she could still have, even though that business owner was now married. Not necessarily a lie, as everyone in the area knew this business owner had a propensity for having extramarital affairs, which was sort of an open secret.
Okay.
This is gross.
As a receptionist of a Catholic newspaper, when you have like 2 cents into realizing and reading the room that maybe you shouldn't be sharing these things with your Catholic members who are also funding your child's education. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I think
you can see what doesn't make sense is you exploiting the church, but also being dumb about it.
Listen, as someone, again, who went to Catholic school, private Catholic school, there's so much drama in it. It's so dumb. It
is great. I've been a part of it, like churches, and the drama is crazy.
That crap is a soap opera, and I'm like, wow, this is wild.
This person feels like they live for it, dude.
I'm like, what?
This person just feels like they couldn't not yap about their dastardly plans.
Oh,
no matter what.
Dude, they love, for some reason.
Gotta
They
yap.
just love
She's a
yapping.
Scooby-Doo villain.
Yeah.
So she then started bragging that she could have any guy she wanted, and would even mention that she was going to go on to dating sites, which was this was before Tinder and WhatsApp and when you had Match.com and eHarmony. Of course.
Did you say WhatsApp is a dating site?
I guess, is it? I don't know.
No,
I don't use
it's
WhatsApp.
not. It's just you message people through it.
Kick.
Of course. She would stop the cheating talk whenever her son was around, since it was an individual building with a small staff and a decent amount of space. We were allowed to bring in our children if we needed to, especially since everyone's children tended to be well behaved and were old enough at this point to keep themselves busy, and no one really took advantage of this. So her son, who was a preteen, would come by the office after school on a lot of days and wait for his dad to pick him up. During this time, however, while she would stop with the cheating talk, she would still make thinly veiled insults and derogatory comments about her husband in front of their son, who would try to ignore her, but you could see he was uncomfortable with it. When her husband would come pick the son up, she would always find something to criticize the poor man about. He was a couple of minutes late, literally like 2 to 3 minutes late once, and she blew up at him in front of everyone. He didn't pick up an earlier call fast enough. He was supposed to grab something from the store, but it was wrong. He wasn't dressed nice enough. He was in casual clothes on a day off, but it was still decent looking. He was dressed too nice if he had just gotten off work. Not bright enough or smart enough, etc. I mean, literally, this woman was doing everything in her power to emotionally wreck this man who was a very nice man. She even stated that he was always treating her nicely, and it irritated her because it made her feel like he wasn't a real man because he remembers birthdays, anniversaries, and got her flowers or presents, etc. Fellas, we just can't win out here.
Oh my gosh.
Too nice. I'm going to add that to the list of icks. Too nice.
Breathing.
Not
Ick.
real man. Too nice.
Wearing a seatbelt.
Oh,
Ick.
looking too good. Not looking good enough.
Smelling nice. Ick.
Golly, dude.
People, I wish I had a guy in my life that would treat me half as well as this man treated Rachel. This behavior would get worse all the time. At one point, she got mad and spent the entire day at the office ranting and raving because she tried to make him jealous over a stranger and he didn't attack the guy. That would be like common sense. By the way, her making him jealous was to gush over the way the guy looked. Instead, her husband just seemed defeated by her comments. At this point, she had eroded away most of his confidence and he walked away. Now, but yeah, can you imagine like systematically like just degrading and devaluing your husband to the point where he has no confidence in himself? And then you literally openly like gush and flirt about another man in front of him. And he goes, yeah, I guess that's just me again. Probably my fault. And then you go, why isn't he sticking up for, why didn't he attack that man?
Dude, this woman needs to get a reality check soon.
Yeah. First of all, what do you mean? Why didn't he attack that? Do you want your men to just go out here racking up felonies because of stuff you're saying? Who do you want? An angry gorilla?
Probably.
Like, well, who
I
are
think
you
she
looking
wants
for?
Anyone but her husband.
I think so. I think she's just so... Her brain has become rotten with entitlement.
My take, she got away with doing something kind of like, ooh. And she's got addicted to it. She wants to see how many more things she can like get away with. Like, ooh, I can get away with this as well.
She's addicted to being a nasty lady.
Yep.
Dude.
And no one's telling her, stop. No one's telling her that.
Dang. Yeah.
So, now, by this point, she had really started running their finances into the ground with all her me pamperings and purchases. And he has finally started to notice and get some of his shiny spine back. He starts insisting that she cut back on spending. She can't stand this, so she decides she needs a real man who makes real money and will lavish her with anything she wants at any given time. Enter a fair partner. We're going to call him Alfredo.
He might get a name soon.
AP
Alfredo?
just made me think Alfredo.
We can do Alfredo.
Antonio,
I like
with
Alfredo, though. I don't know if I
Antonio
wanna...
Pierce.
Antonio Pierce. She finds the perfect patsy, if you will. Though I am still not sure who was really conning or using who in this relationship on one of her dating sites. Only problem is that he's from Canada and we are Midwest USA. So start the long-distance, fully emotional affair. She would gush about him at the office, printed out the photos of himself that he sent her, and talk about how wonderfully attentive he was, how attractive he was, and how, quote, rich and successful he was. Please note, this is important later. I see you in the frickin' chat, dude, and I really hope this is what I think it is.
Did you see this conspiracy theory? I like this one.
Conspiracy theory, she wants him to get mad, get arrested for assault, and then she can claim he's abusive and clean him out in the divorce. I mean, maybe.
That might be one of her plans.
That could be.
Her devilish plans. But no, this guy's about to come in, say all the nice things he wants to say, and clean her clean. Get all the money out. Make her move out. Make her move in with him, and they can take all her money.
So, now, I myself had been trying some online dating and even an in-person matchmaking business around this time, so I was already having enough issues with the messes I had to clean up from the creeps I kept attracting, some of which were downright frightening. So I will admit that I was already jaded with the belief that there were a lot of scammers and liars that would use these venues to prey on easy targets. Thus, I was probably more than a little biased for this next part. Feel free to call me an a-hole for it, but I did not trust this man on any level. It took her a while to even get the first picture of him, and that first picture was almost a glorified headshot, like you see in a school yearbook, only older, like a teacher. Yeah, so if it's not clear, guys, this guy's about to scam her.
Yep, that is a scammer.
Super hard
In
scam.
Vancouver, Canada.
It was apparently a very recent photo, and he looked very healthy in it. Again, this is important later. She said he was just getting out of a long marriage himself and was going through a divorce, and so he understood where she was coming from in regards to her own, currently still ongoing, yet unhappy marriage. After a few months pass and many more pics of him looking fine and dandy, I come into the office one morning to see her standing by the copier in tears, utterly despondent. The reason? He had given her some bad news. Apparently, he had been trying to figure out how to tell her he had brain cancer and 6 months to live. Yeah. Again, I am probably the a-hole here and definitely jaded by the liars I have encountered and seen my friends encounter, because I had an ex and 2 of my 3 friends had exes by this point who had all 3 at different points in time pulled the I have cancer card to either try to guilt us into continuing to date them after we had broken up, or in one friend's case, as an excuse to break up with her. That's to have 3 different friends have that happen to them?
Yeah.
Is insane.
They probably all got the same magazine of how to break up with a girl or how to get a girl to get back with you, and it all said mention cancer.
Bro, you know what? That actually is probably true, because back then, around this time, I'm guessing this is like early 2000s, before like the advent of like meme culture and like the modern internet had like taken hold. So it's like something like that like floats around, and then it becomes like the one thing everyone knows and uses.
Because this has happened today. Have you noticed whenever you're waiting, people say thank you for your patience rather than sorry for making you wait? Have you noticed that?
I have not.
You'll notice it. Whenever someone's like, you're waiting, and like, thank you for your patience, they're not going to say sorry for waiting anymore.
That's interesting. I think I can kind of, I think I know what you're talking
about. Once I
Yeah.
realized that, it's happened 5 times to me, and I've realized that as well. And I come to the conclusion, oh, you must have saw the same Instagram reel I saw.
Oh yeah, it's like, well, what? Because it takes him. Oh no, it's a compliment. Now they're patient.
Yeah,
I have a
you're
skill.
complimenting them.
Ooh, I am patient.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, yeah, I did have to wait. I hate you.
But dude, this is crazy. How can she not know? Well, I guess catfishing didn't get its definition until like a few years ago or whatever.
What do you mean?
Well, like people didn't know about catfishing. Didn't think it was
People
everyone.
That's
Bro,
like 2010s.
People
20,
knew about
2010s, that's when
catfishing.
it-
like,
okay.
dude, like,
There
I would
was
say, like,
literally a show on MTV in the 2000s called Catfish.
yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
Sorry, it's ahead of your time.
Well, okay, but
We didn't
It's
reinvent.
probably not a common thing. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't think it was a common thing. So I wasn't very conscious in the 2000s.
Well, it did become
I was
a much
growing.
more. It did become a bigger problem when the internet became a vehicle for dating.
Yeah.
And then it became very easy to lie about your appearance and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So to get back to this, which by the way, I'm in the camp that this person's lying about brain cancer. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no way this is real. This guy is scamming this person and is going to ask for money soon. Watch it. So also, I've had previous coworkers and family with cancer, and when it gets that serious, they did not look that healthy. I tried to tell her that, but she refused to believe me. She said he wanted to come see her soon so that they could consummate their relationship, quote, before it was too late. So I just shut up about it, but refused to trust in this. I was positive that sooner or later the other shoe would drop. Anyways, she bought him tickets to come see her, paid for a hotel for him to stay in. Now, remember that this guy was supposed to be rich and successful. But apparently all his money was tied up in his treatments, his divorce, and all this other stuff, and he couldn't pay for anything. I began to see a bit of karma here. So he comes to visit, which did surprise me and make me feel a little bit guilty about thinking he may have been taking advantage of and scamming her, especially as he did actually match the photos he had sent. and she brought him to the office along with her son. Whoa, boy.
How is
Whoa.
no one saying anything?
Oh, my God.
Because they don't like her.
What? Well, no. How is no one calling her out and firing her from her job because she's a Catholic? That makes no sense to me.
You're bringing your brain cancer affair partner to consummate your affair with your son?
Yeah.
To your work?
Yeah.
Where everyone knows you?
Oh my gosh, dude.
They're going to be like, are we paying for his Catholic school too? Is this another one?
Bro.
So remember the coworker from the last post? That was Rachel's sponsor to become Catholic. Well, she lit off. She was the assistant editor to the paper and for all intents and purposes, second in charge, if you ignored the actual diocese and focused solely on in-office staff. She reamed Rachel up one side and down the other over this. She basically told Rachel that while she could not tell Rachel not to have an affair or what to do or not do in her private life, she could tell her that not only was it extremely inappropriate to bring her Alfredo to the office, but that as a Catholic business that was family-oriented, it would look bad on the business as a whole. What if the Archbishop walked in while Rachel was flaunting her Alfredo around the office? Nope. As long as Rachel was still married, she was not to bring Alfredo to the office. When Rachel tried to talk to our editor about it, who was himself a rather lean-back guy, he just reiterated what our coworker had told Rachel before. No Alfredo in the office. She was not happy, but he never came by again. Anyway, the trip lasted a week or so, and another few months of her flying him out on her dime and him needing assistance with this brand new miracle treatment that cured him of his cancer. All heck finally broke loose. So remember when I mentioned that her husband had started asking her to limit her spending? Well, it turns out that he had also started paying closer attention to that spending. Even more so after Alfredo had started coming twice monthly weekend visits. And he was not happy with what he discovered. Namely, that all the money he had been giving her for their son's education was not going to the school. She was still having the church pay all of that, but that now she was spending more on online dating sites and then to bring her Alfredo from Canada once or twice a month for a weekend at a time. I guess he must have wanted to wait a while to get all his ducks in a row because he never actually confronted her about it.
What?
I do know that she got a bit worried at one point that her husband was distancing himself from her and seemed to have become very cold, but she couldn't figure out why because she honestly believed, yes, she stated this, that, quote, he was too stupid to notice her having an affair. Now the stupid is on the other foot, isn't it?
That's so crazy.
Oh. So, one fine fall day, it happened. I was in the back in my office eating lunch while reading the non-Catholic paper. As the graphic designer, I had a large room with 3 computers for my own workspace because it would become the space where we would put the paper together. And when deadlines would loom, several people might all be back there at once, so essentially, I had the largest office in the building all to myself most of the time. When I heard a scream issued from up front. When I say everyone came running out, I do not jest. This scream had to have been heard in India, and it wasn't frightened or sad. It was indignant and angry. Ugh. We rush out to see a gentleman in a suit leaving the building and Rachel clutching a batch of papers, red in the face and looking like she's trying to strangle a rock for blood. She had just been served divorce papers,
Woo-hoo!
And she was having none of it. But hey, you know what? You can have all of it, by the way. All of it at your fingertips is full episodes with stories like this that you can listen to at your heart's content. All you got to do is go to your favorite podcast platform like Spotify. Right there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from, and just search OK Storytime. And
Easy
go
money.
crazy, folks.
Dude.
Go crazy.
Go crazy. Go stupid.
Woman, I don't know. How long did she think she could keep up with this? And when is she going to realize this guy's not rich?
Well, clearly she's an idiot.
Yeah.
Not only does she think her husband is too stupid to know that she's having an affair, which clearly he was not,
Yeah.
she's stupid enough to fall for one of the most blatantly obvious scams ever.
Yeah.
Not only does he not have any money, he does not have brain cancer, and it was not miraculously cured by a wonder drug that he now needs your help to pay for. This woman is a grade A. Hey, pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town? Yeah, that's what she is.
That's
she
true.
just blew. She was the mayor of Stupid Town.
Yeah.
Stupid Town annexed itself and became its own country, and she is the king of Stupid Town.
I just went to Stupid Town and didn't know how famous you were there.
Yeah, everybody in Stupid Town knows about OP's dumb
Rachel?
coworker Rachel.
Yeah, dude, she's mayor.
My God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let this be a lesson. Sometimes you get what you freaking deserve. You know what I mean? So if you're out there up to no good, I'd reconsider it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's finish this story. So somehow she managed to convince herself that she would be the one to serve them the divorce papers when she was ready. And she had not been ready just yet because she was waiting for her Alfredo to propose to her. He actually did propose to her a while later, again, making me feel guilty for thinking he was a scammer, and with her own list of demands, etc. So among the divorce papers were proof of her affair,
Wow.
which Rachel did not see that coming. Now, you would think that this would be the end and that Rachel would be happy to let her unworthy husband go so she could be with her perfect Alfredo, but no. If that were the case, then Rachel would not be nearly the entitled person that she was. She was not going to go down without a fight. She was going to prove that she was the real victim in all this, even if it meant trying to commit fraud and trying to convince me to give her forgery lessons. But that, dear ones, is a story for another day?
Is that it?
And that is the end of that story. Here we go, folks. So my entitled coworker asked me for forgery lessons. Her name is Rachel, and her trilogy comes to an end. Okay, I have mentioned my entitled coworker Rachel from my days working at a small Catholic newspaper before. But for this and upcoming stories, I think it's time to introduce the rest of the circus, as it were. The ones that were working there at this time are as follows, and all names have been changed. People who work here previous to this point and people who started after this point will not be mentioned yet, as they are not relative to the story. The Archbishop, our publisher, who did not come to the newspaper office that often and really doesn't feature in this story, but I wanted it to be understood that yes, there are 3 people that our editor answers to, as the newspaper is considered part of the Archdiocese organizational structure. So they really are a part of the Vatican.
Oh.
Sanctioned by the Archdiocese.
So do we feel as bad, chat?
We still, yeah. Well, the money is coming from the community. So yeah, it's still, you're literally exploiting your neighbors and no one else.
Yeah.
Which is, you're literally just bypassing the Catholic Church's exploitation of your neighbors, and you're just taking it direct.
Yeah.
So you're kind of stealing from the church by stealing from your neighbors, which is unhinged.
Okay.
Anyways, the other 2 that the editor is also responsible for answering to are the Chancellor and Vice Chancellor, who work directly below the Archbishop but don't have any official newspaper titles. And then there's Tom, our mostly beloved, if a little dense at times, editor-in-chief, who was suffering some serious on and off health issues, which is important as it explains why so many rotten things happened under his watch that he had missed. Then there's Jane, our then assistant, or associate, as titles changed at one point, editor. Associate editor who also sponsored Rachel during her RCIA and switched to Catholicism. She was basically the one in charge at this time, as Tom was often out of the office due to his health issues. And then there's Roger, a deacon and a newly hired advertising executive who had not yet settled into his toxic, misogynistic, manipulative, thieving, gaslighting ways yet. He was still getting a feel for how much he could get away with, and Jane was still able to provide a nice buffer between he and I at this point. Then there's Lindsay, a writer/photographer, Marcy, a full-time employee who split her work between part-time writer-photographer as well as part-time advertising associate working under Roger. And Rachel, the longtime receptionist secretary who shared duties with Gina and was extremely entitled. She had a soon-to-be ex-husband, a son, and an affair partner who we all know as Alfredo.
Alfredo.
And then there's Gina, another receptionist secretary who shared duties with Rachel and had been working there for about 1.5 to 2 years by this point. Also worth noting that she was newly engaged to her longtime boyfriend. Then there's Kathy, our office manager, and yours truly, me, the graphic designer. There were others that would come and go at this time, but they were usually either people that were temps to help during peak printing times, freelancers that would help write or take photos, or our IT guy that would come in as needed. Basically, none of them worked in the office on a regular basis anyway. I digress.
Cool.
When we last left off, Rachel had been served divorce papers at the office, and she was livid, to say the least. And she spent the next several days letting us know this. Every day as she tried to get things organized, she was yelling and snapping and throwing a fit. At us, at customers, at advertisers, at pretty much everyone. She even verbally accosted a few priests and a nun to complain about her horrible husband and ask how she could stop this, since divorce is not readily recognized in the Catholic Church and an annulment is usually needed. Jane constantly had to tell her to cool it.
Shoot.
And who's Jane?
The person in charge, very bottom.
Yes. Okay, at one point, she even started telling Gina that she should just break up with her boyfriend and not get married, as marriage was horrible, men were horrible, and she wouldn't be able to trust her husband and would just be worthless like all the others. Mind you, she was still singing the praises of Alfredo, her affair partner at this point. Well, Jane finally had it, and the next time Tom was in, who was the real man in charge.
Yep, chief, editor-in-chief.
Jane went to him about all of this because Rachel was actively trying to undermine Gina's engagement, and it was making Gina very uncomfortable. And Gina didn't even talk about it all that much. But even the sight of her engagement ring would set Rachel off. Has this place not heard about firing people? That's my question.
I don't think so.
Is Rachel so good at her secretary job that she cannot just be fired?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
And she probably has buttered them up so much, saying, I'm so poor, I have no money, what will happen to my kid?
Get fired, nerd. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're bringing your affair partner to work and telling people to break off their engagements.
Yeah, like there's no moral check. That's what baffles me about this whole situation.
Just a selfish butthole. Anyway, so Tom called Rachel into his office and basically told her that she had two choices. She could stop snapping at everyone and stop trying to convince Gina that marriage was bad, or she could just quit now. Because if she didn't stop those two things, she would be fired. There we go.
All right, backbone.
Now, she was smart enough to know that while Jane did not have the authority to fire her, Tom did and would. So she stopped snapping so much and stopped deriding marriage in front of Gina. You'd think it would all be good at that point, right? We would finally get a break from all the drama, correct? Nope. Get your popcorn out, folks, because it was about to hit the fan. Rachel had decided to take all her pent-up anger and frustration and laser focus them onto one goal and one goal only. She wanted sweet, juicy revenge. So she just, revenge, which she does not have any right to at all.
Yeah,
because she is the stinker.
What? She just loves evil and she feeds off of it, and these nice, good people are giving her a place to do that. Why? Aren't you also evil by
extension?
She's
a little demon. You'd think people of the Catholic Church would be quicker to find that she's a little demon. In fact, not a little demon. She's a big, stinky, ripe demon. Yeah. A ripe, stinking demon.
I'd smell her from 3 miles away. Goodness gracious.
P.U. What's that? Oh, it's just Rachel.
Sorry. That was me.
Oh, no.
No,
Keon's got fart jokes, guys.
Oh,
okay.
No.
So, she decided to put all, and I mean all, of her energy into making her soon-to-be ex the most miserable man on earth. Though I am pretty sure by this point, she had already previously succeeded. Now, soon-to-be ex, not being nearly as stupid as Rachel thought, did stay in the house, and Rachel was the one forced out. So she went to stay at a hotel. I believe it was one of those where you could basically rent it like an apartment for a week at a time, no lease required, and a kitchenette included. And they also split custody of their son 50-50 during this time.
Ooh.
Oh, man, the children. No, not the children. Oh God, so sorry that the kid has to have this as his mom.
Yeah, the kid's
crazy.
just like going to school, getting grades.
So her being without her house, her access to his money, as he had cut her off from his paycheck with the exception of a small bit for child support, even though he was not required to yet, and having to use her own money to buy things, all just added fuel to the fire of her wanting to get back at soon-to-be ex. Yeah, that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like, instead of, a perfect time to focus on ourselves and grow and change, no, actually, I'm going to channel all of my energy into revenge. Revenge which I do not deserve.
I am baffled by this woman and how her brain is wired.
Her behavior tracks so far. Her brain is wired by like a team of blind chimpanzees.
Yeah.
Just a loud, angry mess.
And the fact that people are giving her resources to keep continuing to do this, it needs to stop. And like, fire her, get her out of there, kick her out of your house. Don't give custody of your kid. What?
Well, it's 50-50 for now.
But still, she shouldn't have anything to do with him.
I would assume that it's probably going to get less. But
I
I don't
hope.
think they haven't done anything through the courts yet. It's all at the beginning. It's the beginning stages. So, anyways, though it was not initially much of a revenge plan, as it basically consisted of her trying to take him for everything he owned under the guise of deserving both alimony and child support, and was positive she could get full custody and the house. She decided that while tanning and constant haircuts and dye jobs were a continued must, she would forego the weekly mani-pedis and twice-monthly spa treatments. Instead, she started looking for lawyers, any that would explain to her that she was highly unlikely to get alimony under the circumstances, as she had been employed for several years, was not a stay-at-home mom, and had a good enough skill set and work history to remain employed or get a new job. She would dismiss from consideration almost immediately. She was going to get her alimony. She did eventually settle on a lawyer who was willing to do what she asked and try to bilk him for everything. I don't know what that word means.
I'll look it up.
So with that done,
Like
she's...
milk?
Bilk?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Is bilk like milk?
Bilk is to cheat out of something valuable.
Oh.
To cheat, yes, to bilk him for everything. So, with that done, she started gathering all financial records, all past bank accounts, all information she could get. And she started bringing all of this paperwork to the office, and anytime the phones weren't ringing or she didn't have specific jobs that she had to do, she would instead pore over all this information. And that was when it happened. We were on the second day of deadline. Our newspaper deadlines lasted 3 days, and I had just finished pasting in ads to some of the pages. We had not yet fully gone electronic for our printing, so some ads needed to be pasted into hard copy. Now, Jane, who would sit in the back with me when I would lay out pages, so I knew what stories needed to go on what pages, had gone back to her desk, so I was back there by myself. Rachel came up to me in a bit of a rush, waited for me to turn to her, and shoved the 2 papers in my face and asked, "OP, do these 2 signatures look the same?" I stepped back, completely confused, and looked at the 2 papers. I noticed that one was an official-looking document with soon-to-be X's signature at the bottom, and the other was a plain piece of copy paper where soon-to-be X's signature had been written about 3 to 4 times. After a moment, I realized, though, that it was not soon-to-be X's signature, but attempts at soon-to-be X's signature. Not the worst attempt I had ever seen at someone trying to copy another person's signature, but definitely not passable either. I looked at Rachel and asked, "Did you try to mimic his signature?" She nodded, and I told her, "You failed. Anyone with any training is going to know they aren't the same."
All right.
Which is not what you should have said. You should have gone, "It looks identical. Go ahead and use that on any document. Go for it.
That looks fantastic.
Yeah, oh, it's perfect."
Hey, you should have my job as a graphic designer. That is beautiful.
Which I'm really hoping we have the time. I hope that she freaking does this at some point. Let's go. So then Rachel again asks, "But do you think it's close enough to pass for someone who isn't trained?" And at this point, I was starting to feel very uncomfortable with this line of questioning. So I told her that I did not think it would pass muster with anyone who was even slightly familiar with his signature. A bit of a lie there, because I thought some people not paying attention might fall for it, but I didn't want to be roped into whatever scheme she was planning.
That's probably the safest thing to do, yeah.
Honestly, yes. But like, come on, dude. You got to inform. Someone needs to be informed now that she's got a plan to fake
Yeah.
signatures.
Let's call the police.
Yeah. Forgery is not something I was willing to get involved with on any level. I like my freedom and do not want to go to jail for any reason. That was when she asked if I could teach her how to get his signature down. By this point, alarm bells weren't just ringing in my head, they were playing the complete 1812 overture, cannons and all. So I asked her what this was all about. And that is when she told me she had been getting some of soon-to-be X's mail. And among them was a bank statement from a bank that soon-to-be X had not used for years. It turned out that he had an account there back when he was in college before they married that he had let go into stagnation when they did get married because they had combined finances and opened up a joint account at another bank. Apparently at the time, he had less than $1 in the account and figured they would just automatically close it after a set time so he wouldn't have to worry about it, which for that time period was normal for accounts under a certain amount. What neither of them knew was that after he had stopped paying attention, the school had apparently found a payment error and refunded him a few $1,000s. Not much, but enough that when, years later, after having a lawyer going over everything in search of anything she could use, Rachel had found out about this long-forgotten account. And she had called the bank. Since she was still his wife legally, she gave them his name with her address so that she could get a statement as to what was still in the account. Her plan was to perfect his signature and send in the paperwork for them to send her a check or transfer it into her new single bank account. So that's, by the way, super freaking illegal on several different levels.
And why is she explaining this to you?
Oh,
OP?
wait, no, it's maybe less illegal because they're still technically legally married, but still
Wrong.
Still not right, and I'm still sure pretty much this is still fraud.
Yeah.
And in an ongoing divorce, like, not only is you, oh my God.
This guy.
Rachel, you sweet, stupid idiot.
How did this guy not know about this? What?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, where's the bank? Dude, banks, hello, call me bank. Hi, that was my account. Call me. So I tried to explain to Rachel that I did not think it would work, and why. One, he would sooner or later figure it out. She was insistent that he wouldn't, and because he had forgotten he even had this account, let alone knowing it had any money in it, that they would want to talk to him or see him in person. And she said she could just have Alfredo pose as him over the phone, as she had soon-to-be X's social security number and other info that she could have Alfredo give them, and that it wouldn't be able to be in person anyway because it was in a completely different state half a continent away. She was positive there was no way she could get caught, but she really, really needed me as an artist to show her how to forge his signature properly.
Okay.
WTF.
Time out. At this point, ultimatum. Rachel, you better burn this idea and your idea freaking notebook in the dumpster, or I'm telling your husband, your ex-husband, what is happening. You have to inform him. You can't be a bystander than this. You have to let him know.
Oh,
no.
Yeah, but
okay, good.
I agree.
I thought you were going to be like, no.
The thing I disagree with is that you giving her the option.
Got it.
I wouldn't even give her the option. I'd
You
be
just
like,
tell him?
yeah, I don't know. That sounds like the worst idea I've ever heard, and I wouldn't even try to do it. And then I would immediately be like, beep, boop, bop. Hello, Rachel's husband or soon-to-be ex-husband.
Yeah.
Guess who's trying to do a fraud on you? I bet you're going to know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, I'd tell him immediately. And I'd let her, again, think she's a freaking super genius or whatever she thinks.
Yeah.
She's the most delusional person ever. So, yes, I probably could have technically shown her and or done it if I had wanted to, but no. As I said before, I don't like the idea of being in jail. I don't want to risk that. My sister once told someone that if she was going to go to jail, it better be for a payout of millions, and even that would still not be enough. I mean, if you're going to give me millions, maybe I'll go to jail.
I go
Only
to
if
jail.
it's for like nothing.
I go to jail for millions for 30 days.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it works like that, but you know.
Well, it better, or I'm not going to jail.
we should dig more into that. How much? Anyway, let's keep going.
There you go. Good job.
I meant later. We'll dig into that later.
Okay, I'm proud of you.
I feel the same way, especially since I was a single mom of a 6-year-old kid myself at that time who was helping care for her disabled parents. So I simply told her no, that I could not and would not help her. Now, Jane had come back by this point as Rachel had taken the no and somberly gone back up front, mumbling about doing it herself and trying to figure out how to get the money. Jane looked at me and asked what that was about, and I told her. She looked at me as though my head had just flown off. She was like, wait. She asked you to commit a crime. I said, well, technically she asked me to abet a crime she would be committing. Gotta love OP being technically sound here. She's like, actually, she asked me to abet a crime. And I said no.
Golly, dude.
Dang.
Oh, my.
So, Jane was not happy for several reasons. She said that this was beyond unacceptable and would talk to her. I told her that it was unnecessary as I had already told Rachel no, and that she would most likely get caught anyway, but Jane insisted that she shouldn't have even asked me in the first place. So she did talk to Rachel, and while Rachel didn't actually apologize, she didn't get angry at me. She did come back through to complain about how Jane had apparently overheard our conversation and yelled at her for that, saying she was not to ask people to take part in illegal activities for her divorce ever again. Thank you, Jane, for not ratting me out.
Yeah.
Also, again, why is this person not being fired? What are we doing?
You're just letting this.
What are we doing?
Do you just like the tea so much you want to keep her around? Is that what this is? I feel like that's the plan here.
She's recruiting coworkers for a criminal conspiracy. Fire her. Get gone. Be gone.
Out of here.
Out.
Out. We're done.
So Jane admitted later that since Rachel hated her by this point anyways, she saw no reason to cause more drama with the truth. So she told Rachel she had heard the entire conversation from the hallway, taking the full brunt of Rachel's anger. Rachel never did ask me about forgery again, though. And while I do not know whether she got that money or not, it was never mentioned after that, she continued on with insisting on getting what she wanted, and that was bleeding soon-to-be ex dry. Spoiler alert, she didn't. She did get some small amount of child support, but that was only because she got 60-40 custody, I think, which that's insane. How is she swinging 40% custody?
I have no idea. What?
Ugh. And let that be just a little evidence, man. The courts do not always treat people equally.
Yeah.
That's crazy that she's able to
wild.
make an argument on paper that she deserves any custody for this kid.
Yeah. Or money.
But no alimony. She also did not get the house or all the other things she thought she was owed. She did eventually get engaged to Alfredo, who was now allowed back at the office during his visits, should he be visiting during that week, but only to pick her up or drop her off. And he showed up with a large, shiny engagement ring. No, I don't have proof that he paid for it or that it was real, so there was still some possibility of scamming since she was not divorced yet at the time the engagement occurred. But by this time, Rachel's time at the paper was starting to run its course. She was burning bridges, as it were, and when she went to leave the office one day, she did not pay attention to where she was backing up and backed into Gina's fiance's car, which Gina had borrowed. She came running in demanding that Gina and her fiance pay for the damages to her car or she would sue. It's worth noting here, by the way, that Gina's fiance was a lawyer, and it was shortly after this incident that Rachel's time at the paper ended because no one was willing to put up with her entitled nonsense anymore.
Thank
Can
God.
you actually imagine running into someone else's car and then being like, your car was parked outside. You need to pay me.
And then being a freaking lawyer. Can you imagine working with someone like this outside of a Christian workplace and having her do all this crazy stuff? If we ever worked with anyone like this, they would not be here.
They'd be gone immediately.
They would
be
so
gone after like the first or the second.
Second visit.
Sometimes they get a second chance, right?
Yeah, we give second chances. We're
a
nice.
second chance, not
We're nice.
unlimited second chances.
What?
So that's that. No, I do not know what happened to her after this. Facebook was not a thing yet, or if it was still college students only, and she did not keep in touch with any of us. In fact, she was cussing up a storm as she left. Most of it directed at Tom, Jane, and Kathy, I think. Some at Gina and Roger, and thus ended the saga of Rachel. And started a whole other saga of an ongoing fight between Tom and Jane, and eventually led to Roger's decision that it was perfectly fine to gaslight me because I was apparently too good at my job. But those are stories for another day. Dang, you keep on leaving us with the cliffhanger. And there's an edit to add here. Wow, so some people suggested that I should Google Rachel and see if she's married or still married to Alfredo, the affair partner. So I looked up some old issues of the Catholic paper. I couldn't remember her last name offhand, and I had forgotten that she had managed to marry him before she was fired, but she had his last name during her last bit of time there. Okay, so I looked up her name with the newly married name, and oh my God, I wish I had not.
Oh no.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
She has an Only Alfredo's account.
Here is the most concise update I can give to what happened after she was fired. She still has Alfredo's last name and is still using it as of 4 years ago, the most recent info I could find on short notice. Don't know if they are actually still married or not, but I can say that 4 years ago there was a road rage incident of which I am loath to put details here, as this is considered a crime. Let us say that she was fine, but others were not so lucky, and her life has definitely gone downhill. Dang. No, he said road rage. I think jail. I think straight to jail. Fred Armisen, jail.
Happy?
Right to jail.
Happiness? Jail.
What?
Yeah, so I think she got in a road rage
Paddington
incident.
Bear? Jail.
And her massive entitlement started showing. She probably ended up in some kind of physical altercation with somebody.
What happened to the kid? I want
And
to know
she
what happened to
went
the
to
kid.
jail.
Well, we should have saw that the way she responded to Gemma's fiance's car debacle.
Sometimes people need to go to jail.
Yep. Facts.
And she sounds like she needed to go to jail.
And she did. Holy cow.
Just a menace
that
to society.
Was crazy.
A menace. A true
What?
menace.
I'm just baffled at this newspaper. No wonder they suck, because it seemed like OP was not a fan of them the way they treated her.
That's
but the way
right.
they just let this BS happen and then treated her bad.
Yeah, where was the any executive authority there at the
Yeah.
newspaper? Like nobody
Any critical thinking.
Nobody was able to make the call to let Rachel go. Maybe just I don't know, maybe just a little bit earlier?
Yeah.
Maybe just a little earlier than like letting her commit like criminal conspiracy in the workplace. Maybe let her go as soon as she's bringing her Canadian affair partner into the office with her
With
kid.
her kid.
Maybe fire her immediately after that.
Oh my God.
With no chance of coming back.
I would be firing her whenever I see her nails done and makeup done all the time. Like if her hair is being pampered every single.
Oh my God!
Sorry.
No, I forgot about the context of that.
Yeah.
Which is because I was just like, wait, you'd fire her for doing her makeup?
No, not that.
No, but it's with the context of her taking money
Yeah.
from the church and from the parishioners and saying that she can't afford school or can't afford any of this other stuff. Yes,
Golly.
of course. As soon as it became clear she was literally lying to steal money from the organization that the paper belongs to,
Yeah.
I think that's grounds to probably fire. I think
I'm
so.
Baffled.
So that is the end of that story and the end of this episode, which I deeply hope you enjoyed. So if you love us, make sure you subscribe.
We freaking love you.
And we will freaking
See you tomorrow.